Hey guys, it's Tark with Cyclone FPV, and again we're continuing with the York Middle School drone class, and we're going to be doing this the kit here, the QAV 250 kit that some of the students are working on. So what we're doing now is we just finished the frame assembly, which you can see here. Now we're getting ready to move on to the ESC. Now this is an ESC the student had worked on. I'm actually going to clean it up a little bit, but basically what we've got here is we've got our positive and our ground, and then we've got our pads here. There's a total of 12 pads, 3 for each motor. And so I'm going to clean this up just a little bit here. So I've got my soldering iron ready, and I'm just going to put a little bit of solder on there to, well, what it'll do is it'll help heat up the solder that's been put on by the student, and then kind of allow me to clean up just a little bit of it and make sure that this is ready to go. So if you've already soldered your ESC, that's fine. Just leave it where you're at. But for some of you who haven't, let me get this soldering iron cleaned up as well. All right, there we go. Let's see if we can go ahead and knock this out. And all I'm going to do is add some solder so I can heat up the solder that's on there, and then that'll help me to remove actually or flatten out any pieces that are kind of either too high or there's just too much solder. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here. And in some cases there's some wiring in there, I can tell, like right here, and I want to scrape all that off and I want to clean this up a little bit. So let me just get that done. All right, so far it's looking pretty good. Now, when you do this setup here, you've got two options, because this ESC is a 4-in-1, which means it's got an XT. It's got the ability to have the power come in from the battery and then distribute to the flight controller, which we'll be going over in a little bit. Or you can have the power go into the flight controller. Now, given the way this is going to be set up, I have a feeling we're just going to go from the ESC, but I'm going to check this out when we get it mounted. Okay, so bear with me a second. All right. So this is pretty clean as it is right now. That'll be fine. Let me lower the heat on my soldering iron now. Whoops, let me turn that off. And let me switch to my soldering iron. Okay. Sorry, I just need to lower the heat on here real quick, so as I'm kind of letting it rest there. All right. So here's what we've got. We've got the motors here, which are going to have to attach to each one of these, right? These pads. Now, I see it right here. There's actually a bridge right here. It was here earlier, and I think I got rid of it. I think I just put it back there. So just make sure none of your pads are bridged. Make sure there's a gap between all of them, or else your motors won't work, okay? All right. All right, so that being said, what we want to do now is we're going to figure this out on the drone. So if you, no matter how you put your drone together, whether you use these standoffs here or not, the fact is that this is going to need to be sitting 3 millimeters above the frame to clear the plug that's right here. And this plug goes with these wires that are right here. So if you wanted to plug this in, let me see which direction they would go. So your pins are, is it like this? No, let me turn it the other way. All right, so like that, okay? So you can go ahead and put your plug in now if you'd like. That's not an issue, and I'll explain what all these wires are for. But what we need to do is, this needs 3 millimeters of clearance. If you use the fasteners like I did, which are these right here, these little tighteners to hold this down, you're going to need 1 more millimeter of space. So grab your 1 millimeter washers and just kind of place them down on there and see if this is going to help clear for you. I know that Coach Stafford had a couple different options. I'm not really sure which one you got. Actually, this one won't work. Let me see, because I think the way he did it, I think what Coach Stafford did was use these white standoffs right here, right? Because those fit in between all these spaces. Let me see. I'm going to see if I can use these 1 millimeter spacers here. Either way, guys, you just need to make sure that your board is sitting straight and not touching the carbon fiber. So in my case, I'm going to use the 1 mil spacers. If you need some of these, let me know. I'll get them to you. I don't know if you got some of those when you guys took your kids home for the summer. But anyways, once it's sitting 1 millimeter additional, that's 3 mils total. And you can see now by looking that everything clears and it looks, we've got enough gap there and everything looks good and it's not sitting at an angle, okay? So that's our ESC right now. And now what we have to do is we have to figure out how we want to wire this up. So, well, let me turn this around though. We got our back over here. Let me see how Coach Stafford, so let me grab your flight controller here real quickly and see how you guys are going to do both of these. Your ESC came with the following. So you have your wire, you have your ground cables and your positive cables here, which have to be soldered. Your flight controller came with your XT60 plug right here. So I'm trying to think of the easiest way for you guys to do this. So let's see, if you're not in class, you don't have all the stuff available to you. I'm going to opt to sorry, I'm just trying to think of how I want to do this for the students that don't have that set up. I think what I'll do is I'm just going to go ahead and link. I'm going to input from my, I'm going to put the XT60, this plug right here, on my flight controller. Okay. And I'm going to place this here. So we're going to need some cables, some wire to go from here to the flight controller. And so let me see what we've got here. I'm going to open this as well. This is what the flight controller came with. Now, we're strictly doing ESC right now, but I just want to make sure that I have everything I need. So you can leave all your flight controller stuff over here. We are going to need some cables for the ESC, and I'm going to see which ones I want to use. So let me think here. These are a little thick. I may just put those aside for now and try to use something smaller, so bear with me a second. Actually, that'd be fine. Since this is probably what you guys have, I'm going to go ahead and just use these anyway. I was just thinking about if I change that and you guys don't, if you can't match it, then it's not going to help you. The problem is I don't need wires this long. This is a super long wire to go from here to there. I could have used something smaller, but for right now, that's fine. Let's just go ahead and let me measure how much space that would be. So if we were to lay this out, this ESC is going to go like this, right? Sorry. Yeah, that's right. So we're going to send the ESC like this. Okay, so you can see the numbers on the ESC, M2, this is motor 2, M1, motor 1, M4, motor 4, M3, motor 3. And then the flight controller, and you're going to have a spacer to go above that, and I believe, let me see how much space we need for that. The whole reason I'm telling you this is because it'll help me figure out how much wire we need, so bear with me a second. And if you find that like on these flight controllers are cut pretty close, the whole pattern is cut close, just kind of gently work it down and see. So we're going to need at least, we're going to take this about 5 millimeters up. Okay, so I'm going to use a 5 millimeter spacer, which is right here. And I think you guys should have some spacers too. But again, if you don't, let me know and we'll get that taken care of. All right. So let me try these real quick. And again, I'm just spacing this out right now, guys. So bear with me a second. Make sure I'm using 5s and not 6s. Maybe I'll go 6. Let's go 6. I think 6 might even be a little bit easier. So there's a 6 millimeter spacer all the way around. Okay, that should fit. Okay, and then I put the flight controller on, and there's an arrow on this flight controller, right? So it's pointing that way. So I'm just going to lay it like this so I can get an idea of what we're doing. Yeah, so I really just need a wire to go from here to here. Okay, this is a really long wire, so I'm actually going to hold off on that. I'm going to go with something smaller. I am going to change it a little bit, but you guys can use that if you want. I'm just going to cut it a little bit smaller because we don't need that much wire. You guys, we can cut these as well. So if we were to use these are really going to be somewhat of an overkill. So let me take this flight control off now, and we can get started, okay? All right, I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to take my standoffs, put them aside, my spacers. I'm going to leave these wires here for now, and we'll deal with that in just a little bit. So let me just kind of wind them up. Okay, so we've got to get our motors and everything soldered, but the first thing I want to do is I want to get my power done, okay? So I'm going to take a cable. Now, if you guys want to cut these ones, you can. If you have extra wire, that's fine. I'm going to cut these, and I'm going to measure them for you. So I would say that you need to cut this wire. Let's see if I was going to wrap this up. Let's just go ahead and cut it. Let's start at 70 millimeters, okay? Or if you were doing inches, let's just say about 2.5 inches or 70. I mean, it's 2.5 inches is more or less than 70 millimeters. I'm just going to cut it at 70. You can measure it as you want. I mean, once you cut them and you solder them, if they're too long, just cut them down. But I'm going to go ahead and do that real quickly, just so that I can get started on this. Okay, so there's my wire there. Let me set that aside. And now I'm going to go ahead and strip the wire so I can expose the strands inside, strip the silicone here. Okay, here's one, and then here's the other one. Okay, and then I'm going to take some of the flux paste here, dip that in there. That just helps the solder hold better. Here's some more flux paste right here. And if you guys need any of this, we've got it on our website if you look under the tools and stuff, but I'll give you guys a special link for that. So now I'm going to use my helping hands here to just hold the wire so I can solder it and tin it up. And so here's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to take it. I'm going to tin it like this. All right, and basically what I want to do is you're basically pre-soldering the wire so it sticks better. All right, and it sticks faster. Trying to put wire on there without doing this is going to make all these little strands kind of spread all over the place, and that's definitely not how you want it. All right, so that's tinned up fine. Now we're going to do the positive. Basically do the same thing. Try to cover it all. Okay, that looks good. You can drop that one. All right, now if you want to work on the ESC outside the frame, if that makes it easier for you, that's fine. Just make sure you get rid of all the little solder pieces that are on the table there. And now we've got our positive and our ground. So let's go ahead and do the positive first. I'm going to use some tweezers for that because this wire can get a little hot. And I'm just going to make sure we have enough solder on here. All right, there we go. And now I'm just going to lay the wire on there. And I'm just going to kind of let it heat up and melt right in. All right, and really I don't want this to keep moving. So if you need to secure it with something, that's fine. But just let it heat up until you get it somewhat stuck on there. All right, and then it'll just melt right in. It'll blend right into that pad, just like that. And there's your positive, okay? So the positive wire is done. And I'm just gonna put some on here to hold it in place a little bit easier. All right, now we're gonna do the same thing with the ground. Okay, let me place that on there. I'm gonna put a little bit more solder on the wire. And again, I'm just gonna hold it in place and wait for it to, you don't wanna press too hard here, just kinda, it'll heat up. As soon as that solder gets hot enough, it's going to go ahead and melt through the wire and go down to the pad. And then it'll all kind of blend in together there. And you'll see it happening here in just a second. Now, if you notice that, like, if it's taking too long or you don't think it's, just add a little bit more solder on the top because the heat passes through the solder. So once you add a little bit more solder, it'll help melt everything on the bottom there. And you'll see it here. It's all going to blend in as one right there. Okay, perfect. So we've got both our positive and our ground now added, all right? And everything there looks good. Those are secure. So what we're going to do next is we're going to get ready for our motors, all right? So this is done, and what we want to do here is we're going to go ahead now, and we're going to place this back in the frame, okay? And now we've got our pads soldered, and we've got our power added, our power wires added, which are going to come over here and attach to the flight controller once it's installed. So that's it. Now what we want to do is we want to get our motors ready. So in this case, I'm actually going to stop this section here because what we're going to do these one at a time. So that's your ESC. That's preparation for your ESC, right? So that's easy to do. Now what you want to do is you want to get your motors, okay? Now if you've done this already, that's fine, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. And part of this is going to be that I'm going to be cutting what's on here, and I'm going to start from scratch with this on you guys to show you guys how we're going to get these wires ready, okay? So hang tight, and we'll see you here shortly.